My sisters wouldn't help me tend to our ailing mother, branding me the family's maid. My sisters, living their glamorous lives, found it hilarious to call me the family maid while I sacrificed everything to care for our dying mother. They had no idea Mom was listening, and that her will, meticulously planned even through the fog of dementia, was about to drop a multi-million-dollar bombshell that would leave them with nothing but their own cruel words. Growing up, our family felt normal. 3 kids, a hardworking mom, the usual sibling squabbles. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for the chilling truth of who my sisters really were, especially when life hit us with a tidal wave. My name's Ethan. I'm 32, and the middle child. My older sister, Chloe, is 35, and Mia, my younger sister, is 28. For years, we were close enough. But beneath the surface, a rot was festering that only a true crisis could expose. Our mom was a force of nature. After Dad passed when I was 15, she raised us mostly on her own. She climbed the corporate ladder, eventually becoming VP of operations at a pharmaceutical company. Sharp as a tack, tough as nails. She made smart money, invested wisely, and built a life that most people only dream of, all through sheer grit and 60-hour work weeks. She never remarried, always saying she had 3 kids and a career, more than enough. And she was right. By the time I graduated college, she'd put all 3 of us through school debt-free, owned a beautiful house, and had a retirement plan that would make a financial advisor weep with joy. After college, we scattered. Chloe married some finance bro named Brendan and moved to an overpriced shoebox in Manhattan, pretending to be important. Her event planning career meant she was too busy for more than 1 call a month to Mom. Mia went full influencer in Miami, getting cosmetic work done and posting thirst traps for content creation. Her boyfriend of the month usually bankrolled her lifestyle. She'd call Mom every other month, usually when she needed cash. Me. I stayed in Charlotte. Industrial engineer. Boring, stable, paid the bills. I never moved more than 20 minutes from Mom because, honestly, she was the one person in my family I genuinely enjoyed spending time with. We'd have dinner once a week, I'd help her around the house on weekends. Just normal son stuff. Then, 3 years ago, everything shattered. Mom started forgetting things. Little stuff at first, keys, appointments, stories she'd already told me. I thought it was just stress, she was 63 and still grinding like she was 30. But then, it escalated. One night, she called me, confused and terrified, lost in the parking lot of the grocery store she'd shopped at for decades. I found her there, tears streaming down her face, completely disoriented. That's when I knew. Something was terribly wrong. The diagnosis came 6 weeks later, early onset dementia, aggressive progression. The neurologist gave her 3 to 5 years before things got really bad. No cure, no treatment, just meds to manage symptoms. My heart sank. I called my sisters. Chloe was devastated, but had a huge corporate retreat to plan in the Hamptons. Mia cried, but was launching a new product line in Miami. Neither of them came. For months after the diagnosis, Mom had to quit her job. Watching her walk away from the career she'd built, the life she loved, was brutal. She cried that night, and my mom was never a crier. I feel like I'm losing myself, piece by piece, she whispered. She was right. That's what dementia does. It steals you, one memory at a time, until there's nothing left. For the first year, Mom could still live independently with some help. I started going over every day after work, making sure she ate, took her meds, hadn't left the stove on. Weekends were for appointments, bills, shopping. Normal aging parent stuff. My sisters sent flowers on her birthday. Gee, thanks. By month 14, things took a terrifying turn. Mom couldn't be alone anymore. She'd wander out of the house at night, forget to eat for days. She fell twice trying to do laundry, forgetting about a previous knee injury. The neurologist recommended full-time home care or a memory facility. I researched. Facilities were $7,000 a month. Home care, if you could find good help, was $4,000 to $5,000. I called a family meeting, which, of course, was a conference call, because they couldn't be bothered to show up in person. I laid out the situation, the costs, and suggested we split everything 3 ways. Mom had always been fair with us. Chloe said she and Brendan were saving for a house in Westchester, couldn't commit to regular expenses, maybe $500 a month max. Mia claimed her influencer income was unstable, between brand deals. She'd help when she could. I did the math. Mom's disability covered basic expenses, but not full-time care. Even with their pathetic, I knew they'd never materialize, contributions, we'd still be $3,000 short a month. And that's when I made the decision that would define the next 3 years of my life. I'd move in with Mom. I'd save the care money, be there for her, and ensure her final years were spent in the home she loved, with someone who actually gave a damn. My sisters, naturally, thought it was a brilliant idea. Why wouldn't they? It required nothing from them. I moved in the following week, gave up my apartment, packed up my life. My commute stretched from 15 minutes to 45. Small price, I told myself. Those first few months weren't terrible. Mom had good days. We'd watch old movies, look at photo albums, garden. She'd tell me stories, sometimes even remembering them correctly. But the good days dwindled. The bad days deepened. By month 18, I was doing everything. Cooking every meal because she'd forget to eat or nearly burn the house down. Managing her complex medication schedule. Helping her shower and dress when she'd forget how. Laundry, cleaning, shopping, lawn care, bills, everything. I cut my work hours to 32 a week, taking a pay cut, just to be more available. My boss, bless him, was incredibly understanding. I worked from home 2 days a week, and hired a daytime helper for 6 hours, $120 a day, which came straight out of my pocket. My sisters, meanwhile, started calling this arrangement me being the family maid. I found out from my Aunt Elaine. Apparently, Chloe had used the term during a phone call, laughing about how I'd become Mom's servant. Mia thought it was hilarious too, joking about it in their group chat, the one I wasn't a part of. My aunt was horrified and told me immediately. She offered to help, but at 71, with her own health issues, I told her not to worry. But that nickname? Man, that burned. I was sacrificing my career, my social life, my savings, my everything to care for the woman who raised us. And they were making jokes from their bougie apartments in Manhattan and Miami. You know what though? I didn't call them out. I didn't start drama. I just kept doing what needed to be done because that's who Mom raised me to be. My sisters would call Mom maybe twice a month, usually when guilt pricked them or they needed to brag about their fascinating lives. Chloe planned a gala for hedge fund wives. Mia hit 50,000 Instagram followers. Real groundbreaking stuff. They'd stay on the phone for maybe 10 minutes before making excuses about being busy. Mom would always smile when they called, even on her bad days when she wasn't quite sure who they were. Sometimes she'd ask me, phone still in hand, was that one of my daughters? Around month 22, Mom had a series of small strokes. Nothing immediately life-threatening, but each one chipped away a little more of her. She stopped recognizing people she'd known for decades. Sometimes she'd forget my name, though she always knew I was her boy who takes care of her. More meds, more appointments, constant monitoring. I was getting maybe 4 hours of sleep a night because she'd wake up confused, scared. I'd calm her, remind her she was home, safe, and sit with her until she fell back asleep. I aged about 10 years in those 22 months. My sisters visited exactly 3 times during this entire period, Christmas year 1, Mom's birthday year 2, and once when Mia was passing through Charlotte. Each visit lasted less than 48 hours. They'd show up, take photos for social media, then make excuses about flights or meetings. Chloe would complain about the medical equipment. Mia would try to have conversations Mom couldn't follow, then get frustrated and check her phone. After they'd leave, I'd be alone again with the reality they found too sad to face from a distance. Month 26 brought another steep decline. Mom couldn't walk without assistance. She'd fall if I wasn't right there. So, I bought a wheelchair and learned physical therapy exercises from a home health nurse. Insurance covered the nurse for 2 45-minute visits a week. The rest was on me. I converted the downstairs den into a bedroom for Mom, since stairs were impossible. Moved her favorite furniture, hung her photos, made it comfortable. I started sleeping on the couch in the living room so I'd hear her at night. My back was destroyed, but I couldn't risk not hearing her if she called out. The medical bills piled up, co-pays, medications, equipment, home modifications. About $2,000 a month out of pocket. I asked my sisters for help, sent them a detailed breakdown. Chloe claimed she and Brendan were stretched thin buying a summer house. She sent $200 once for meds. Never again. Mia said her savings went into launching a beauty line. She'd help once sales came in. They never did. I took out a $15,000 personal loan to cover the mounting costs. Around month 30, Mom stopped speaking in complete sentences. Just single words or phrases, often confused and scared. She'd hold my hand for hours like I was her safe anchor. The neurologist gave her 6 months to a year, maybe less. Her body was shutting down. She'd lost 40 pounds. Hospice nurses came 3 times a week. Angels, honestly. They taught me how to keep her comfortable, manage pain, and face the heartbreaking reality that she was dying in front of me. I called my sisters. Told them to come say goodbye while Mom could still sometimes recognize people. Chloe had a fall gala to see through, a $2 million fundraiser, very important. Mia was locked into a brand partnership contract. She sent flowers with a "thinking of you" card. Neither came. Month 33. Mom stopped getting out of bed. This was it. The final decline. She'd sleep 20 hours a day, waking up confused and scared for those brief windows. She stopped eating solid food. I'd feed her protein shakes and soup, but most days she'd only manage a few sips. The hospice nurse told me to prepare myself. Days, maybe a couple of weeks at most. I took a leave of absence from work. Told my boss I needed to be there full-time for the end. He approved it immediately. Take all the time you need, Ethan. Good man. For 2 weeks, I sat by Mom's bed, held her hand, played her favorite Motown songs, especially The Temptations. I talked to her about memories from when I was a kid, hoping some part of her could still hear me, still remember the good times. My sisters called once during those 2 weeks, on speakerphone, which they thought was nice. They talked to Mom for maybe 5 minutes, telling her they loved her. Mom didn't respond. She couldn't anymore. After they hung up, Mia texted me, "Should I fly out? Is it worth it if she's not really aware anymore?" I didn't respond. Mom passed away on a Wednesday morning, 3 years and 4 days after her diagnosis. I was holding her hand. The hospice nurse was there. It was peaceful. Her breathing slowly grew quieter, then stopped. No drama, no pain. She just slipped away. I sat there with her for about an hour after, not quite ready to let go. The nurse gave me space. Bless her heart. When I finally called the funeral home, it felt like I was moving through water. Everything was slow, heavy. Then, I had to call my sisters. Chloe answered on the first ring, which should have been my first clue something was off. "Oh my God, Ethan, I'm so sorry. When's the funeral?" "I'll be there. Whatever you need." Mia's response was similar. I'm booking a flight right now. I'll handle the flowers. We need to make sure Mom gets the best service. Interesting how they both suddenly had time in their schedules. The funeral was 4 days later. I planned everything myself, picked the casket, wrote the obituary, chose the flowers, selected the music. My sisters offered to help, but I'd been handling everything for 3 years. Why stop now? Both of them showed up the day before the service. Chloe brought Brendan, who I'd met maybe twice in their 6 years of marriage. Mia came with her newest boyfriend, some dude named Liam, who wore designer-ripped jeans to a funeral planning meeting. We met at the funeral home to finalize details. The director, a kind older gentleman named Mr. Davison, had been incredibly helpful. Your mother planned quite a bit of this in advance, Mr. Davison told us. She was very specific about certain arrangements. This was news to me. When did she do this? I asked. About 4 years ago, he said. She updated a few things 2 years ago as well. 4 years ago, before the diagnosis. And 2 years ago, when she was still lucid enough to make decisions. She'd known she wanted to get her affairs in order. Chloe immediately started suggesting changes to Mom's plans. Different flowers, roses are more elegant than carnations, different music, something more contemporary, different everything. Mr. Davison politely shut her down. I'm afraid Mrs. Patterson was very clear that her arrangements were not to be altered. It's in her contract with us. First glimpse of Mom's final play, though I didn't realize it yet. The funeral itself was beautiful, even though I barely remember it. Mom had so many friends from work, her book club, the neighborhood. The church was packed. People kept telling me what an amazing woman she was, how lucky I was to have had her as a mother. My sisters played the grieving daughters perfectly. Lots of tears, lots of hugging strangers, lots of social media posts about how much they'd miss her. Mia even posted a whole Instagram story series with photos of her and Mom through the years, captioned with heartfelt messages about the bond they shared, the bond they'd maintained through twice-monthly phone calls and 3 visits in 3 years. That bond. After the service, several of Mom's friends pulled me aside privately. They all said basically the same thing: your mother was so proud of how you cared for her. She talked about you constantly. She knew what you sacrificed. One of her former coworkers, a woman named Elaine, who'd been Mom's friend for 20 years, grabbed my hand and looked me dead in the eye. She made sure you were taken care of, honey. Don't you worry about that. I didn't know what she meant at the time. The reading of the will was scheduled for 1 week after the funeral. Mom's attorney, a sharp woman in her 50s named Attorney Anya Sharma, had sent us all letters requesting our attendance at her office the following Wednesday at 2 p.m. My sisters were very interested in this meeting. Suddenly, they had all the time in the world to stick around Charlotte. Chloe and Brendan extended their stay. They'd originally planned to fly back the day after the funeral, but now had a flexible schedule for family business. Mia canceled her brand partnerships for the week. Apparently, they weren't as unmissable as she'd claimed when Mom was dying. I knew what they were thinking. Mom had money, not rich, but comfortable. The house was paid off, worth about $650,000. She had retirement accounts, savings, investments, and her life insurance policy from work. All executive-level employees got generous coverage, and Mom had been with the company for 30 years. They smelled money, and suddenly, family was important again. The days leading up to the will reading were tense. My sisters kept trying to have conversations with me about Mom's assets, making sure everything was handled fairly. They'd phrase it like they were looking out for my best interests, making sure I got my share. Chloe started talking about selling the house and splitting the proceeds 3 ways. It's only fair, she'd say. Mom would want us all to benefit equally. Mia suggested we look at all of Mom's accounts together, for transparency. She'd suddenly become very interested in financial planning and estate management. Funny how that interest materialized right after the funeral. I just nodded and said we'd discuss everything at the attorney's office. Let the professionals handle it. The morning of the will reading, I barely slept. Not because I was worried about money, I'd never cared about that. I just wanted it over with. I wanted to finish this chapter, grieve properly, and figure out what came next in my life. I got to Attorney Sharma's office about 15 minutes early. Nice place in uptown Charlotte. Modern building, tasteful decor. Her secretary offered me coffee while I waited. Chloe and Brendan showed up exactly at 2 p.m. Mia rolled in at 2:07 with an iced coffee in hand, apologizing for traffic. Attorney Sharma ushered us into a conference room. Big mahogany table, leather chairs, the whole professional setup. She had a thick folder in front of her. First, let me say how sorry I am for your loss, she began. Your mother was a remarkable woman. I had the privilege of working with her for many years on her estate planning. She opened the folder and pulled out several documents. Mrs. Patterson was very thorough in her planning, especially in the last few years. She updated her will multiple times. The most recent being 14 months ago. 14 months ago. Mom had still been relatively lucid then, could still make clear decisions. I remembered her having a lot of business meetings around that time. She'd said she was getting things organized. The house and all its contents will go to Ethan, Attorney Sharma said, reading from the document, along with all checking and savings accounts, retirement accounts, and investment portfolios. I saw my sisters exchange a look. Okay, so I got the house. They were probably fine with that, assuming the real money was elsewhere. The total value of these assets is approximately $1.8 million. My sisters perked up at that number. Even split 3 ways, that was still $600,000 each. Not bad. Additionally, Attorney Sharma continued, there is the matter of Mrs. Patterson's life insurance policy. Here we go. The big one. Executive-level life insurance policies at Mom's company were generous. I knew hers was significant, but I'd never asked for details. Seemed morbid. $4.5 million. The room went silent. Even Brendan, who'd been checking his phone, looked up. $4.5 million. Holy hell, Mom. I had no idea. Chloe was already doing the math. So, that's $1.5 million each, she said, looking at Mia. Plus, the house proceeds split 3 ways. That's, Attorney Sharma held up her hand. I'm not finished. She pulled out another document and put on her reading glasses. The life insurance policy in its entirety has been left solely to Ethan. You could hear a pin drop. Actually, you could hear Brendan's phone drop because he literally fumbled it onto the table. What? Chloe's voice came out as a squeak. The $4.5 million life insurance benefit is designated entirely to Ethan Patterson as the sole beneficiary, Attorney Sharma repeated calmly. Your mother changed the beneficiary designation 18 months ago. Mia's face had gone white. That can't be right. Mom wouldn't. She wouldn't cut us out like that. Attorney Sharma pulled out what looked like a letter. Your mother anticipated there might be questions. She left this letter to be read at this time, in this setting. She cleared her throat and began reading in Mom's voice, or how I imagined Mom's voice before the disease took it, to my daughters, Chloe and Mia. If you're hearing this, I'm gone, and you're probably confused and angry about my decisions. Let me be clear about why I've chosen to distribute my assets the way I have. For the last 3 years of my life, as I slowly lost myself to a disease I wouldn't wish on anyone, one of my children was there. One of my children rearranged his entire life to care for me. One of my children gave up his career advancement, his social life, his savings, and his peace of mind to make sure I was safe, comfortable, and loved. That child was Ethan. Chloe, you visited me 3 times in 3 years. You called twice a month for 10 minutes each time. When I needed help with medical expenses, you sent $200 once, and then claimed you were too financially stretched while buying a summer house. Mia, your visits were equally rare. Your calls were even less frequent. When I needed support, you told me you were too busy building your brand. You used photos of me for your social media presence while providing nothing of substance to my actual life. Meanwhile, Ethan was there every single day. He fed me when I forgot to eat. He helped me bathe when I couldn't do it myself. He held my hand through the fear and confusion of losing my mind. He slept on a couch for over a year so he could hear me if I needed him at night. He became what you cruelly called him, the family maid. Yes, I knew about that. Your aunt told me during one of my better days, and it broke my heart. But Ethan wasn't a maid. He was a devoted son who honored the woman who raised him by being there when it mattered most. You two showed up for the easy parts, the birthdays, the holidays, the photo opportunities. He showed up for the hard parts, the scary parts, the parts that required real sacrifice. This is not a punishment, daughters. This is simple logic. I'm leaving my money to the child who was actually my child when I needed one. The house and the accounts I'm leaving to Ethan are worth approximately $1.8 million. That represents my life savings, my retirement, my careful planning. The life insurance policy of $4.5 million represents something different. It represents the 3 years Ethan gave up for me, the career he sacrificed, the relationships he couldn't pursue, the sleep he lost, the stress he endured, the life he put on hold. If we break it down by day, that's roughly $4,100 per day for the 1,095 days he cared for me. Barely minimum wage when you factor in 24-hour care. Professional home care would have cost more than double that. So really, I'm not giving Ethan a windfall. I'm paying him what he's owed for services rendered, for love given, for dignity preserved. You too will receive a token from me. Something to remember what you called your brother while he did what you refused to do. I love you both. I truly do. But love doesn't mean pretending you didn't fail when you absolutely did. I hope you learn from this. With love and disappointment, Mom. The silence that followed was deafening. Chloe's face had gone from white to red. Mia was crying, but I couldn't tell if it was genuine emotion or just pure shock. Attorney Sharma set the letter down and pulled out 2 small boxes from her folder. Your mother left each of you a personal item, she said, sliding 1 box to each of my sisters. Chloe opened hers first. Inside was a maid's uniform, the classic black dress with a white apron, the kind you'd see in old movies. The card attached said, "Since you found the title so amusing, Chloe." Mia's box contained the same thing. Her card read, "You laughed too, Mia." I watched my sisters stare at these uniforms like they were holding live grenades. Brendan tried to break the tension. Well, I mean, there has to be some kind of legal recourse here. This isn't. This can't be legal to just cut out your children like this. Attorney Sharma smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. Mrs. Patterson's will is completely legal and ironclad. She was of sound mind when she made these decisions. I have multiple medical evaluations confirming this. And she met with me on 4 separate occasions over 18 months to ensure everything was exactly as she wanted it. She knew there might be challenges. So, we took extraordinary care with documentation. She pulled out another stack of papers. I also have signed affidavits from her primary care physician, her neurologist, and 2 independent psychiatric evaluators confirming her mental competency during the period when these documents were executed. Chloe found her voice. This is ridiculous. She was sick. She was clearly being influenced by, whom? Ethan. Attorney Sharma cut her off. The medical records show he wasn't even present during any of the meetings where your mother discussed her estate planning. She came to my office alone. She made these decisions independently. We could contest it, Mia said, but her voice was small. She already knew. You could try, Attorney Sharma agreed. It would be expensive, lengthy, and ultimately unsuccessful. Your mother specifically allocated $200,000 from the estate to defend against any challenges. That money would come out of Ethan's inheritance, but she was confident the will would hold up and he'd recover it in the end. She was also confident you wouldn't actually go through with a challenge once you understood the futility and expense. Mom had thought of everything. Even 3 years of dementia couldn't erase the sharp, strategic mind she'd built over decades in corporate leadership. Attorney Sharma turned to me. Ethan, your mother also left you a private letter. I'll give you the office for a few minutes to read it after we conclude here. She gathered her papers and looked at all of us. I understand this is emotional. Take time to process. Ethan, I'll need you to come back next week to begin the transfer paperwork. Ladies, if you have questions about the legal validity of the will, I'm happy to provide references for probate attorneys. Though, I must advise you that I believe any challenge would be frivolous. The meeting was over. Just like that, 3 years of sacrifice, 3 hours of will reading, and my sister's world had completely imploded. Chloe and Brendan left without saying a word to me. Just packed up their shock and anger and walked out. I heard her crying in the hallway. Mia lingered for a minute. She looked at me, tears streaming down her face. Did you know? She asked. Did you know she was going to do this? No, I said honestly. I had no idea. We're your sisters, she cried, like that meant something. Like that word carried weight it hadn't earned. Yeah, I replied. You are. And for 3 years, while I needed my sisters, you were in Miami posting selfies. She flinched like I'd hit her. Then she left, too. Attorney Sharma gave me some space, then came back with a sealed envelope. Your mother wanted you to have this privately. I opened it with shaking hands. Mom's handwriting, from before the disease made it impossible. My dearest Ethan, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And you've just sat through what was probably the most uncomfortable hour of your life. I'm sorry for that, but not sorry enough to have done it differently. You gave me 3 years I didn't deserve. Not because of anything I did, but because of a disease that stole me piece by piece. You could have walked away. You could have done what your sisters did. Loved me from a distance with phone calls and occasional visits. No one would have blamed you. But you didn't. You stayed. You gave up so much to be there for me. And I need you to know that I was aware of it. Even on my worst days, even when I couldn't remember your name, I knew you were my safe place. I knew you were the one who cared. The money I'm leaving you isn't a reward. It's compensation for what you sacrificed. It's an apology for what the disease took from both of us. And it's my way of making sure that you don't walk away from these 3 years with nothing but exhaustion and debt. Use it wisely. Build the life you put on hold for me. Find someone who deserves you. Travel, enjoy yourself, live the life I would want for you, and don't feel guilty about your sisters. They made their choices, and choices have consequences. I taught you that when you were young, and it still applies now. I love you more than words can express. You were the best of my 3 miracles. Not because you were smarter or more successful, but because when it mattered most, you showed up. Thank you for being my son. Thank you for being there. Thank you for loving me even when I couldn't remember how much I loved you back. Forever grateful, Mom. I sat in that office and cried. For the first time since she died. Not sad tears exactly, more like a dam breaking. 3 years of holding it together, being strong, managing everything, and I could finally let it out. Attorney Sharma gave me tissues. She'd probably seen this before. When I could talk again, I asked her something that had been bothering me. When did she write that? The letter to my sisters. About 16 months ago, Attorney Sharma said. She came in with a draft. We reviewed it together over several meetings. She was very specific about the wording. The private letter to you she wrote about 20 months ago and updated it several times. The final version is dated 14 months ago. During her lucid periods, while I was sleeping on the couch and managing her medications and changing her sheets when she had accidents, Mom had been carefully planning this moment. Making sure I'd be okay when she was gone. The woman was a strategic genius right up until the disease took that from her, too. Over the next few weeks, the reality of everything set in. My sisters tried reaching out a few times. Chloe sent a long email about how family should stick together, and how she'd always been there for me in her own way. She suggested we talk about Mom's wishes and find a compromise that honors her memory. I didn't respond. Mia left me a crying voicemail, saying she was sorry, that she knew she'd messed up, but that cutting her out completely was cruel and not what Mom would have wanted. I deleted it. The thing is, Mom's letter was right. They did make their choices. For 3 years, they chose their comfortable lives over being uncomfortable for her. They chose convenience over commitment. They chose themselves over family. And now they were mad that choices have consequences. The house took a few months to clear out. I kept some of Mom's furniture, her photos, personal items that meant something. Donated a bunch of stuff to charity. Chloe asked if she could have some specific items, Mom's jewelry, some antique furniture. I had everything appraised and offered to sell them the items at market value. She declined, said it was heartless to charge family for sentimental items. I reminded her that professional home care for 3 years would have cost about $180,000, and I'd provided it for free. So really, if we wanted to talk about what was fair, she owed me roughly $60,000 as her share. She stopped asking for stuff. I decided to keep the house and rent it out. Good investment property, and I wasn't ready to let it go completely. Hired a property management company to handle it. The rental income covers the mortgage on the new place I bought for myself, a nice condo downtown, close to work, with actual furniture that wasn't bought in 1987. The life insurance money. I invested most of it, set up a diversified portfolio with a financial advisor. Kept enough liquid to pay off my personal loan and do some things I'd been putting off for years. I took a month off work and traveled to Ireland. Mom had always wanted to go, but never got the chance. I scattered some of her ashes on the cliffs of Moher. Seemed right. I bought a new car. Nothing crazy, but reliable and comfortable. My old car had 187,000 miles and a mysterious rattling noise I'd been ignoring for 2 years. I started going to a gym, eating better, taking care of myself. 3 years of survival mode had destroyed my health. Time to rebuild. And I started dating again. Met a woman named Sarah at a friend's barbecue. She's a veterinarian, funny, kind, doesn't take herself too seriously. When I told her about the last 3 years of my life, she didn't run screaming. Actually said it showed I was loyal and committed, which were traits she valued. We've been together 6 months now. It's nice. Normal. Healthy. My sisters reached out one more time, about 8 months after Mom passed. They wanted to meet for coffee, talk things through, work on rebuilding our relationship. I thought about it, genuinely considered it. Then I remembered 3 years of twice-monthly phone calls. 3 years of watching Mom ask when her daughters would visit. 3 years of carrying everything alone while they joked about me being the family maid. I sent them both a message. Mom left you exactly what you gave her. A token gesture. I think that's fair. I hope you both have good lives, but I'm not interested in having you in mine. Blocked both their numbers after that. Some people might think that's harsh. Might say family is family and forgiveness is important. And you know what? Maybe they're right. But I spent 3 years being there for someone who needed me. 3 years of sacrifice and exhaustion and heartbreak. And my sisters spent those same 3 years worrying about their apartments and their brands and their social calendars. Moms didn't punish them for that. It just reflected reality. They weren't there when it mattered, so they don't get to benefit now that it's over. That's not cruelty. That's just consequences. 3 days after the will reading, Chloe showed up at Mom's house while I was sorting through the last of the belongings. She'd been crying, mascara smudged, hair a mess. Brendan wasn't with her. "We need to talk," she said. "About what?" I asked, packing books into boxes. "About making this right. About what Mom would have actually wanted." I stopped and looked at her. She made what she wanted pretty clear. She made those decisions 18 months ago, had her competency evaluated by 3 different doctors. But sure, she wasn't thinking straight. Chloe's face crumpled. "I can't go back to New York empty-handed. Brendan's going to leave me." "Then I guess you should have thought about that before you bought a summer house instead of helping with medical bills," I replied, my voice flat. She left crying. Brendan filed for divorce 2 months later. Guess she was right about that. Mia tried a different approach. She showed up with her boyfriend, Liam, and a lawyer. They wanted to contest the will, said they had grounds based on undue influence and Mom's medical condition. Attorney Sharma shut that down in about 15 minutes, showing them the documentation, the medical evaluations, the notarized statements. Their lawyer literally told them they were wasting their money and left. Mia stayed on my porch, crying, for 20 minutes. Liam eventually dragged her back to their car. I watched from the window and didn't open the door. The house sold to a nice family with 2 kids. Got asking price within a week. I kept a few of Mom's things, her favorite chair, some photos, her collection of mystery novels. Donated the rest. They want to know if I'm dealing with mine just fine. I am. So, tell me, if you were in my shoes, would you have done anything differently? Or is a little dose of poetic justice exactly what was needed here? Share your thoughts below, I'm reading every comment.